skyrocket in the 1950s when there was a real doctrinal breakdown occurring. In fact, at this time, most people who claimed to be Catholic were unfortunately denying the necessity of the Church for salvation. In the 1950s, this Bishop Fulton Sheen, with whom many people are familiar, he had a television show on ABC, and at one point, Sheen actually had 30 million listeners. He had a prime-time show on ABC. The problem, however, was that Sheen reflected a watered-down, gutted false Catholicism, which most people had adopted by that time, according to which people can be saved outside the Church. According to O'Toole, the author of The Faithful, Sheen, on his television show, quote, never prayed or discussed specific Catholic doctrines. Instead, he echoed the non-denominational messages of such Protestant and Jewish preachers as Norman Vincent Peale and Joshua Loth Liebman. Sheen's point was simple. Life was indeed worth living if one turned attention periodically to higher things. For Americans who had put their, quote, faith in faith, Sheen's message did not require adherence to Catholicism, end quote. And so his message was essentially, quote, inspirational, conservative in terms of non-denominationally conservative. And he would speak against communism, and therefore in the process he would compromise. This is an example of how large numbers do not necessarily equate to success. He was reaching 30 million people, but was he reaching them with the truth? No, he wasn't. Sheen was in fact an outrageous apostate. His television program was so acceptable and palatable to non-Catholic audiences that it's still rerun on the Protestant Trinity Broadcasting Network. And Sheen was an example of the heretical bishop and priest that set the stage for the Vatican II Great Apostasy. By the way, there's an extremely heretical statement from Sheen on the dogma, outside the Church there is no salvation. It's so bad that even one of the priests of the Society of St. Pius X, who himself denies the salvation dogma and authored an outrageously dishonest book on the topic, he actually criticized Sheen on the topic, and he quotes Sheen. Sheen says, quote, I studied and read so many things about what we used to call the salvation of pagans. How were these unbelievers saved? In the 11th century, we were given the theology of baptism of desire. But when you travel the world, visit leper colonies, see human beings fighting with vultures in the garbage heaps of Latin America, when you see the poverty of the great cities of the world, when you see 250,000 sleeping in the streets of Calcutta, when you see starving women with starving children strapped on their backs, when I saw all these things, I never saw so many Christs in my life. I saw them everywhere. Maybe I saw more there than here, but in a different way. When you say that they do not know Christ, they do not need to know. End quote. So Sheen's saying that these pagans don't need to know Christ. As long as they endure hardships in their lives, that's their salvation, and they are in fact other Christs. And it's so heretical that even this SSPX priest who denies the dogma basically condemned his statement. And Sheen went on to embrace the Vatican II apostasy, false ecumenism. So he was really a false teacher and a false prophet who led people into this watered-down, non-denominational, conservative type of religion